All right, Discord boys, we're answering your questions. Let's take a look. So first question, of course, came from Bankshift Bill. Obviously, Bill had to come in first. He said, does it give you a fizzy sensation in your gentleman's region? Yes, it does. When this crossplane 4 gets past 9,000 RPM and it starts changing the character of the sound from that grumbly low, growl that it has to that screaming howl. Oh my God, I just want to nut every time. It's very good. Beto ATX says, top speed, please demonstrate. Can't, very illegal, but I think it does like 186. MT Roberts 07 asks, pros and cons of the R1 versus R6 as a track bike. So I've got a lot to say about this, and I think I want to make it like a whole video, but suffice it to say, the R6 and the 636 and even the Daytona, like those middleweight motorcycles, are so much easier to learn how to ride well on track. They're not as advanced as something like the R1, but you really don't need that. I think a lot of guys convince themselves in their heads that they need the electronics, they need the 200 horsepower, they need this, they need that. You really don't. I have gapped and passed and inside passed R1s and S1000s and V4s all day long on my Daytona, because on track, unless you're at something like Coda, which has like an enormous back straight, you can do everything on this bike that you would on a 600, and you're gonna learn a lot more on a 600. To take it even further, if you wanted to get into track riding, you should start with like a 400, because you'll learn so much more about the limits of grip and sliding and actually getting your body in the correct position. So I would say, if you are a very high level rider, I'm talking like 95th percentile type of thing, like expert level, club racer type of thing, the R1's an amazing tool for the job. Unbelievably capable motorcycle, but unless you possess those talents or that experience, it's a bit of a handful. Even for me, I'm pretty experienced on track. I would still prefer to ride my Daytona, not just because I love it, but it's just easier. It's just more manageable. And I feel like I can pull out probably similar lap times on a shorter course. It's monstrously capable, but at the end of the day, it's like, what's your goal? You know what I mean? So I have a lot to say about that topic, and I think I want to do a whole video about it, so let's keep it rolling. Calf Powered, what's up, dude? He asks, how does the engine feel when under load, under 6,000 RPM? It lugs a little bit. Given that the engine makes all that power all at the top, you really feel it. It's actually super docile under 6,000 RPM. I mean, you put it in like B, C, or D mode, everything except A mode. A mode, no matter what rev, it's crazy. But B, C, and D modes under 6,000, you can pretty much wick the throttle, and it actually takes a while to like build power and really get going. It doesn't have this sort of instant punch that something like the Hayabusa has. So it's actually not that crazy. Ty Dubs asks, how does it feel to ride around town for more than an hour or so? So because my back is kind of messed up from a couple accidents, I have a torn ligament in my T5, it's pretty miserable to ride around town. You also just feel like you're just poodling it around. You never get out of like second or third gear around town. So it just feels like it's riding you and not you're riding the bike, because it has the quick shifter up and down. So honestly, around town, it feels like a really big, uncomfortable scooter. It's really not fun around town. It's cool because people look at you. It's a bright red, shiny sport bike with a cool sound, so everyone's kind of looking at you, but I think that gets old kind of fast. Mr. Negative, our resident boomer, asks, can a cup holder be installed on clip-ons? I bet you it can. Ty Dubs asks, is it a dank nooner machine? Yeah. First gear in A mode with anything more than 30% throttle, that front wheel is lifting. It just comes up. I don't know if this motorcycle has wheelie control. I'm pretty sure it does, but I wasn't about to test it on the road and see what it would do, because it is pretty frightening to just be given a gas and it just starts going up. Again, I'm not super used to leader bikes. I'm much more used to the middleweight class, and they don't do that unless you really want them to. So again, this bike kind of rides you, you don't ride it. Pipes asks, any good for commuting? Traffic? Like, you could commute with this bike. It's definitely capable of it if you really have no back problems or you really only want one motorcycle. You could certainly commute with the R1. I can think of 10 motorcycles off the top of my head that would be more fun and better at commuting than the R1. But yes, it can commute. It's much more of a normal feeling motorcycle than you would think. Like you ride it around and you're like, okay, it's stupidly fast, but at the end of the day, it feels like a normal bike. And speaking of that, Mr. Negative asks, how refined is it compared to the Busa? It is light years ahead of the Busa. It is unbelievably refined. It feels like, you know, because it's a modern motorcycle. It's got all the amenities and features that you'd want. It's dialed in. It feels really nice. It's an incredibly refined and sophisticated motorcycle, and it just shows how far motorcycling has come in the last 20 years that, you know, that big Busa over there feels as ancient as it does compared to this. Yeah, it's worlds apart from it. Beto asks, how do all the electronics play into street riding, and is it noticeable or affect you off track? So I think the biggest praise you can give a bike with electronics is that you don't even know that they're there. And that's how I felt with the R1. They didn't intrude in any of the riding I did today. I didn't feel like they were doing anything. Because again, if you're pushing on the street enough to the electronics are doing stuff for you, like if you're getting that like traction control kind of, you know, sound to it, you're going really fast, like really fast for the street. So I didn't notice anything with the electronics. That's something that I'd love to test whenever I take it on track, because of course I'm going to take it on track and see kind of how it does and if I even notice anything. Because again, you have to ride at such a high level to even feel electronics doing anything. And I'd like to think that I have the abilities to do that, but until I put some tank grips on this thing, it's completely impossible. So hope that answers the question. Bankshift Bill coming in with number 2 says, you've spent the money, you've not had a thought, are you fast? Yes. Yes, I am. Bouldering Pot asks, how touchy are the controls, i.e. brakes, throttle, and clutch? Brakes are incredibly touchy. That's something that I'd like to dial in. If this was my personal motorcycle, I'd like to, you know, tweak the brakes a little bit, because they feel, not only are they incredibly powerful, that Nissan Master Cylinder is really, really nice, but you just give a little bit of pressure, you are coming to a complete stop. It's incredibly powerful. The throttle, it depends on the mode. If you're in A mode, it's that typical Yamaha twitchy, you know, on-off light switch throttle feel. Modes B, C, and D I actually preferred more than A mode. They feel more normal. You don't get the crazy, you know, flick of the wrist, like super fast kind of stuff off like A mode, but I find that B and C and D modes are more appropriate for street riding kind of stuff. I don't really know why you would want A mode. Even on track, you'd want a smoother throttle pickup as you lifted it up off a corner. You'd want something that's smoother than that. So I don't know why it's like that. Mr. Negative asks, should brown leather pants be worn first time? Oh yeah, you definitely should. Joshua Moore asks, what are the differences between You'll be one and the older generations before it? I think this is asking like differences between this and the older gens. Mostly it's electronics and the looks. Like this looks like a much more modern, updated bike. This has tons of new features, traction control, stability control, cornering ABS, possibly wheelie control, but I don't know. Rider modes, all kinds of goodies. That's really where these like new crop of leader bikes shine versus the old ones. Like the first gen R1 had nothing, you know what I mean? Like it was just 1,000 cc's, go to town. Those bikes are actually very dangerous because they don't have any controls and they will just slide out and do stuff. Whereas this will help to save you. So those are kind of the differences. Mr. Negative asks, are the rider modes programmable / tunable? It is. So whenever you set up A mode or B mode or C mode or D mode, you can then cycle through each of the power, stability, or traction control settings and change those up to your will. I believe there is a way to make it so that it's a rider preset, so you can actually set it up to be what you want it to be. So yeah, they're all programmable. Bankshift Bill asks, what does owning an R1 in the wrong color say about your role in society? You gotta be an outsider, bro. You gotta think different, dude. Everyone's got a blue and a black R1. You gotta go with the red R1. You gotta throw them off the scent, man. You gotta zig when they zag, you know what I'm saying? Josh from VA asks, how does the overall feel in the usable street aspect without breaking 10 laws compared to the MT10 besides the ergonomics differences? You know, the MT10 is a stupidly fast bike. This is an even more stupidly fast bike. This thing has 40 more horsepower at the top end than an MT10 does. So this goads you into doing dumber things if you keep revving it out, right? Like if you let it coax you, you're doing a $130 on this thing without even understanding what's about to happen next to you. You know what I mean? Whereas the MT10 has low down grunt, and off a stoplight you can just go ba 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 and just go through like 3 or 4 gears, and it's more fun. So I think this is actually a much more dangerous motorcycle because you actually do need to rev it out more to get all that power. But then when you get that power, it is an ungodly sum of power, and you better be ready for it. Mr. Negative says, does it make any sense to ride on the street? No. Honestly, no. And I have a feeling I'm gonna have to really hold myself back when I'm making some of these videos because this is miserable to ride on the street. I would rather ride the XSR 700 or my sled or even the Duke 390 on the street. They're just more fun. You can't do anything with this thing. You wick the throttle for 1 second in any gear, you're already going over the speed limit. It's annoying, honestly. So yeah, I'm gonna have to be like kind of careful when I talk about this bike because I mean, it's, again, super capable. It's a terrible street bike. Days of Chaos asks, what are your personal opinions about the color of the R1 compared to the other colors of the past R1s? This one in particular, I am head over heels for because it's the first color as my first little red R3. So to me, a red Yamaha just really tugs at the heartstrings. And I really like the new colorways that they have for the R1s. I think they're really sick, so I prefer these new crops over the old ones. But the best colorway that they ever did for the R1 was the 60th anniversary yellow and black colorway. I'll put up a little picture right here. That's the best color of the R1. Joshua Moore says, Stoppies, question mark? Yeah, you could probably do Stoppies with it. I can't, but I could probably do it. Quail asks, should I start on an R1? Come on. Mr. Negative asks, if you like it, are you gonna say F the giveaway? This bike is my new track bike, SML. How much is insurance? So like, I wish I could say F it and this is my new bike, but that would be so illegal and I'd get in so much trouble if I started up a sweepstakes and then just kept the bike. That would be so bad. I don't even want to think about the consequences of that. And then your second question is, how much is insurance? It's surprisingly cheap. I think it only added like $600 a year to the policy where I have all the other bikes. So I'm pretty sure I'm getting some kind of bundle deal because I have so many bikes on the policy, because there's no way that an R1 is only an extra $600 a year. It's got to be more than that. Joshua Moore asks, you have to get color matched gear to ride it. Yes, you do. Merc Jacobs asks, how good is the R1 for lane splitting? How many cars can it lane split at one time with that sweet, sweet top end power? Boy, yeah, I'm really happy that this bike has a nice kind of, chill quality to it at the low revs, and you can just poodle around town with it. I like that Yamaha dialed that in because they clearly know their customer base and what people are going to do with this bike. But it's surprisingly narrow. It's really no more wide than an R6. Actually, in some capacities, it's even more narrow than old R6s used to be, and definitely old R1s. It's a very narrow bike in the saddle, and so you can split anything, really. It's no more wide than the Street Triple or my Desert Sled, really, with my wide handlebars. So you could definitely split with this bike. Reich S89 asks, GSXR to R1, reasonable upgrade. It really depends on what you're doing with that. If that's your track bike to go to an R1, if you feel like you're ready, that's cool. It's going to be a big jump, but you should be able to do it. If it's for the street, I mean, unless you really want to do crazy top-end highway pulls, I don't see the purpose in owning an R1, truthfully. I think it's best suited at the racetrack. It really sucks on the street. Post Malone says Turbo Busa or die. And then Nav R3 asks, how's the overall feel compared to your Daytona? It's actually surprisingly similar. The dimensions aren't that much different. Obviously the top end power is worlds apart. This thing's a rocket ship, whereas the Daytona just has like a nice, good, usable power. But it's actually really similar. The Daytona flicks in a little bit quicker, but that could just be due to the fact that mine is set up for race duty and we've kind of dialed it in for the suspension. This is completely bone stock, so I haven't adjusted preload or rebound or compression to get this thing to flick in the way I would like it to. But it's surprisingly similar, honestly. It's really not too different than the Daytona, just kind of poodling around town. I'm sure once I get it on track and really kind of explore what it can do, I'm sure a lot of differences are going to start becoming more apparent to me. So that is all the questions. Thank you, my sweet Discord boys. I will now put this video together and send it off to you.